Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 118. I'm Krista Jutra,
I'm Tasia Custody.
I'm Ged Smythe.
I'm Will Silver.
And running the crew, I'm Greg Williams.
and we are getting a weird little echo with Grace still. Hopefully we'll get rid of that. It was weird. It was almost like a pre-echo, a preco. Anyhow, we'll see. We'll muddle through. Speaking of muddling through, at least 20% of us here have just downed a quick Chinese food dinner and hopefully won't poop our pants, but we'll see how that goes.
I thought it was going to come up the other way, not the back end.
We're getting banned from YouTube.
And for those watching, you may have noticed something a little different going on. Not only do we have special guest Ged Smythe, who we haven't seen for months and months. We're happy to have you back, Ged. But on location, together with Ged, is, look at that! It's Gray and Ged together. Homeboys in the Hood in Guelph, Ontario. Love to see it. All right.
Great to have him back.
Okay. Let's get Gray back on the one-up. Everything is as it should be. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of follow-up today, but we will get through it as quickly as possible here. And but before we get into that, Ged, how you doing? It's been a while.
I'm doing well. I am, obviously we'll get into it in a bit, but I am absurdly busy. So I'm excited to share what's been going on. And sorry, your batting percentage is so low with me being on lately. I apologize.
Well, I'm sure
all of you, but Tasia the most.
I'm sure it'll decrease even further as you get busier and busier. If you want to find out more about us at Momentous, you can go to momentous.tv/links. You can follow us individually at momentous.tv/team and the audio version of this sensation at momentous.tv/podcast. All right, starting with follow-up. Actually, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the release of the Google Pixel Fold. And we talked about it a bit, I think initially in May when it was finally announced after months and months of teasing by Google. Last week, we had special guest Jamie Reynolds on to give his impressions so far, given it was one of his anticipated tech picks of 2023. And now some of the hands-on reviews are starting to arrive from the various media outlets, and they seem to be generally favorable. Slightly different approach to Samsung's, which have 4 generations under their belt now, and as such, Google's first generation offering does well in some respects, but by comparison, sort of comes in second, maybe a strong second place to some of Samsung's offerings. But Gray found one story about one reviewer who had their their Google Pixel Fold. Something happened within just a very short time of using. What was that, Gray?
It looks like the sort of hinge gave out, and the way that the closed display touch, or they almost touch, debris got smashed into the screen. This is Ars Technica. I mean, they do have a tendency to write great reviews. And so, I mean, I trust them. This feels like they got they got the one. There's a 2 to 5% defect rate on average of consumer electronics. So they got the lemon. And I feel very, very sorry for them. But yeah, the screen died after a couple of days. The pixels died out. They ended up with grit inside the screen. This actually kind of brings up all of the, I won't say complaints, but concerns that I know I had when we started looking at folding screens for the first time. When we first got a Samsung folding screen at work, it did this stuff. Screen died, stuff smashed in between the screen. I just can't bring myself to understand why people need a phone that folds. I'm just not there.
Well, in this case, with the review unit that Ars Technica had, they said specifically that the flexible OLED screen died after 4 days. The bottom 10 pixels went dead first, forming a white line of 100% brightness that blazed across the bottom of the screen. And then the entire left half of the foldable display stopped responding to touch, and then a white gradient started growing upward across the display. For those viewing, you can see in the photo, it just looks like it looks like everything's de-resing from the bottom in this, it looks like, almost from a nuclear explosion. Not that we've been talking about nuclear explosions much lately.
I should say that the Samsung that we got in at first, we destroyed because we didn't realize that the plastic film coating on it
you were one of those.
wasn't supposed to come off.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I thought we were doing the right thing, but like you pull the plastic off your electronics, right? Because we're not going to be those people that lay the plastic on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you weren't the only one. I think Marcus Brownlee did that as well too, because it seemed like it was something you peel off, right? Everyone's peeling off those covers.
This
So
horrible low-grade plastic needs to go.
exactly. So the Google Pixel Fold, some people are the foldable features work great. Tend to work best with Google's native apps. Again, it's a bit of a different approach to Samsung, where when you unfold Samsung's, it's doing it kind of tends toward the side by side apps, where with the Google Pixel Fold, it wants the apps to go full screen, but it works best with Google's own. So this is another symptom of the diversity of the Android ecosystem, when you have all these players doing their own things, especially when it comes to diverse form factors like foldables and flippables and whatnot, is that if the software isn't optimized for those things, then it can get a little janky. Cameras appear solid, excellent battery life and performance overall. A little heavy when folded, again, a little bulky. That was one of Jamie's concerns. It's still going to be bulky in the pocket. Back cover getting hot. Charging adapter not included, which seems to be the trend nowadays as once. But again, $1,800 just to get in with this, whereby a lot of your flagship slab phones, smartphones tend to be a fair bit less and offer a better value. So unless, again, the idea of having a foldable is kind of neat, but are you willing to pay for a premium for that sort of thing? Now, Gad, we haven't really, I don't think we've spoken to you about any of these foldables or new generation flip phones that we've seen from the likes of Samsung, Google, and Motorola. Any thoughts from your perspective? Or do you miss the days of the flip phone? Would you like to have a nice a modern day flip phone with big, beautiful screens, one that flipped up or flipped sideways, like the fold variations do?
I mean, I loved a flip phone. It was 2003. I was skinnier. I had a bit more game, but other than that, I have zero use for them. I mean, if you fold it, it gets thick and bulky. I mean, I'm happy to leave 2002 and 2002. I'm good. Just give me my slab phone. Let me get a case on it that can get shot and be okay still. I'm not sure why they need this, but that's all right. And I'm just happy to move on and slide it in my pocket and feel a bit better about myself.
Fair enough. In other Google news, we were speaking last week about the death of yet another Google project. What even was it? Does anyone remember what it was? My memory is failing me.
It was the URLs or whatever, the domains.
Oh, Google Domains, right? Yes. And so again, we were talking last week about the dozens and dozens of projects that Google has launched and killed off over the years. And any company that is interested in R&D and experimentation will do that a bit, but Google is the poster child for this, given their engineering culture, their spaghetti at the wall experimentation culture. But it's crazy. You go to killedbygoogle.com and you can see the list. Well, one more thing to add to that list is their augmented reality glasses project called Project Iris. And this one looked kind of cool. It was almost like the rebooting of the Google Glass, but more in a traditional sort of wearable. And it sounds like they are shutting this down in favor of some possible other collaborations. Google Glass still exists for commercial and industrial uses, but Tasia, given that you are official Momentous Google correspondent, what are your thoughts on this AR, this fancy AR lightweight headset that they'd been teasing us with last year, and now, and with the live translation features and all that kind of stuff, and now it seems to be going away already?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Google is they like to throw a lot of stuff out there and see what sticks. But I also think part of the issue is Google Glass was so ahead of its time, and it was just too ahead of the curve, and nobody could comprehend that type of technology at that time. So now it would be like they'd be behind the game. But I just think they're trying to maybe streamline what they're focusing on. Maybe they have something else cooking.
Yeah.
And they just are like, we're going to sideline that because we have another thing coming.
Well, I guess the difference is that this was a product that never actually made it to market. So we can be thankful for that at least. And it seems like Google is actually redirecting the resources to a partnership with Qualcomm and Samsung. And maybe Google's technology will underlie that platform instead going forward. So we shall see. Maybe next year we'll see what the product of that partnership is. Moving on to other follow-up. Again, starting off with a Google involvement and tying into the whole Reddit blackout situation. So just as a quick recap, a few weeks ago, Reddit decided in preparation for its IPO and wanted to get its financials in shape. Reddit CEO Steve Huffman announced that they were going to be charging for API access. So that's access to their application programming interface, which would help power third-party apps. The problem is then these third-party apps, such as Apollo, which are favored by many who don't like to use Reddit's native app, their own first-party app, or don't like to use the web version of Reddit. All of a sudden, these app makers were going to have to pay lots and lots of money to Reddit every year, upwards of $20 million for the most popular app, Apollo. And that wasn't going to be necessarily a sustainable proposition. Reddit's case was that they wanted to start charging for API access because so much of their content was being scraped by those who were developing large language models, such as OpenAI, Google, Meta, and others. So it only seemed fair that they set this up. But then all these other third-party apps kind of got swept up in this process. And there hasn't really been much in the way of budging from Reddit on this. And as a response, and a protest in support of the third-party app makers and other issues, many Reddit moderators, Gray included, decided to make their subreddits private. And the fallout from this, and a little bit of, we talked about that the one angle of this in the last week or two, is when you make these subreddits private, they're not accessible by the web scrapers, such as the large language models, like ChatGPT and others, but also not available for scraping by the search engines. And so many valuable search results nowadays come from Reddit. Some people even put the word Reddit in their search result in the search box when they're searching for a specific topic. But now, with so many of these subreddits going private, Google is saying that this Reddit blackout is making Google search results worse. So this is, from the department of things that were perfectly predictable. So moving from the Google angle into more of a pure Reddit angle, Gray is going to talk to us about what Reddit mods, perhaps including himself, are calling for to address this situation, to maybe find a resolution with Reddit.
Well, so basically looking at this, Steve Huffman has said that they're going to try to wait for this to blow over. And it's not really working out that well. We're seeing search results not turning out so good. A few of us have decided that, yes, we are going to poison the well. So I'm happy to announce here tonight that the new Westminster subreddit is now going to focus solely on things that are new about Westminster in England, and solely that and nothing more. I also run the Countryman subreddit, so it's going to be solely about people who wear bib overalls to work on a regular basis. And we're basically looking to poison the well as much as we can for search results. Reddit has been very resistant to this. There have been a coalition of moderators who have tried to do some negotiating. We're looking to see if we can get a moderator advocate, because if there's anything better than a lot of us having our cries fall on deaf ears, it's somebody inside the company having their cries fall on deaf ears, and that really is going to mean a whole lot to me. Somebody inside the company being ignored along with the rest of us. I'm not budging. I'm not.
So as we have about 8,000 subreddits have gone dark as part of this process, and a large number of moderators as well. Some moderators, such as yourself, are in charge of more than one subreddit. Would you mind walking us through some of these, series of requests that have been presented to Reddit to find a resolution to this matter for third-party apps and the restoration thereof?
Hold on, wait, quick question. Did I hear that there's a place I can get overalls? Like, is that going to be a thing again?
That's in.
I want to see team over everyone in overalls in a couple of weeks. Find your Oshkosh. I don't even know who makes overalls. But if you could sort that out, I think we should have a full hoedown.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what we're looking at is looking at third-party apps, being able to make money as well as provide money back to Reddit. Looking at a reduction in spam, the bigotry, misinformation, illegal content. This is fascinating because our Canada was taken over by right-wing extremists, one self-identified Nazi, which we basically went to our on guard for thee at one point because there was no way to dig out the tick that was this moderator. And basically looking at having moderator tools being available on old Reddit, new Reddit mobile platforms. A lot of folks are still using the re-release of Reddit's sort of new interface. I know I go back to it all the time because the ads and the kludge that are in the new Reddit are not great.
And that's one of the things that some of these third-party apps were actually moderation apps, and that's one of the things that ticked off the moderators, right?
Yeah, Apollo is phenomenal for managing mod mail. I get everything into one inbox, and I can actually, moderate all of my stuff through there. So being able to look at anything that's done that would affect moderators, who we are volunteers, like everyone on Reddit that's not paid for by the main company. We're volunteering our time, creating content, gathering content, and then sharing that and commenting. So basically, looking together, figuring out what the roadmap is, and then finding a way forwards together as opposed to under the iron fist of Danny Rand and or Spez.
Gotcha. And so there are a few other requests being made. We'll include the article in the show notes for those who want to dig a little deeper into the requests being made to Reddit by its 8,000 moderators who have participated in this blackout. So I think this is a story that is going to continue to develop. We'll see where it goes from here. Another quick bit of follow-up. So I think this is like 2 years ago we first started talking about this in the various billionaires and their space companies, not just Elon Musk with SpaceX and Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, but we can't forget about good old Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic, who is focusing on space tourism. Well, Tasia, you'll be glad to know that Virgin Galactic will start commercial spaceflight on June 29th. So you can finally take your trip up into suborbit there. You stoked or what?
No thanks, guys. I'm good with my feet firmly planted on Earth. I don't want to go up and I don't want to go down.
Sure.
So the reassuring part is that this is just their sixth flight. One of the 20% of the previous flights ended in deadly disaster. So I'm not sure how good the odds are looking here. One might recall how many tests SpaceX has done, for example, and how many of those resulted in various types of explosions. Virgin Galactic they're slightly less ambitious in terms of how far into space that they're going. But still, I'm not sure if I'm loving those odds.
It's not their first rodeo. It's their sixth.
Exactly. Rodeos can still be a little bit deadly.
Maybe passenger voyage is way up and passenger voyage is way down. Should just be left alone for a while. The world's gonna need is it too soon? Like the world's gonna need a little bit of a breather after what has recently happened. Let's just
really.
I didn't really think
The
about
whole,
that. Yes. But yeah, unless you're batting 950 with one of these flights or whatever else you want to. I mean, don't bother. Like that's just a terrible idea.
I think we're all out.
Yeah, out.
All right, we're mixing up the order a little bit because Tasia has to leave us not too long. So we're going to jump to her story, which is disrupting our carefully crafted show flow. It was going so well, but we're going to jump ahead into an AI story. Hopefully, we've got a.
Nobody's gonna know.
They won't.
Some of us didn't even read it.
and we know, and we don't edit this show, so everyone's going to know.
All right. You wouldn't have said anything, nobody would have known.
Exactly. We edit ourselves. I'm sorry. So Tasia found a story for us. We've been talking about so much AI stuff in the last year, especially. And it's not all about large language models and chatbots. We've talked a little bit about how AI is helping with things like deciphering interpreting medical imaging. So, Tasia, how is AI helping to shrink waiting times for NHS cancer patients in the UK?
Well, so something a lot of people don't think about is how long it takes to actually map an area. So when you're doing this type of radiology and stuff on cancer patients, you can't just you know, shoot it wherever you want. So like say they're trying to map out an area like near the prostate for like prostate cancer, you have to take into account like certain organs like the bladder and stuff like that. And it's extremely time consuming and can take radiologists like 2.5 hours sometimes to like map all this out. So now they're using like Osiris, I think is like the name of this program that they've developed that is using AI to help them map out like and create certain like segmentations for them. So I think it can go 2.5 times quicker than what like the radiologist can do. So this can be used in like a numerous amount of ways to like speed up people's actual appointments. It can get people in quicker because it's freeing up the time for the specialist as well, so they can see more people. So it's really, really good use. Like I know a lot of time when we're talking about AI, people are like, my job, and I'm freaked out. No, and it can write a paper. And it's like, yeah, but this is the stuff that you're like, what are we really going to use it for in terms of like our health technologies and helping people? So I thought that was really, really cool. And so this took them a really long time to kind of be dialed into this. And it's not going to be very long until we see either this system or a system like it that's hopefully going to be used more than just, in Cambridge there at NHS.
So apparently they've started on working on a model that works in the chest. So that would work for lung cancer and breast cancer. And they're working on a brain model as well. So, again, working on brain tumors is especially fraught. So the better and more accurately they're able to map out potential pathologies there and really be very precise in any treatment to brain tumors is only going to help us out. So that's exciting news from the world of AI. That's not just about chatting with AI chatbots and making images on Midjourney, or making music or making, little video clips. We've been actually collecting a whole bunch of additional AI stories. There's so many. We might do a little roundup next week. We'll see how that goes. So thanks for bringing that one up, Tasia. There's another thing that's kind of in the similar vein. For less, I guess it's sort of in the general field of health and wellness, more on the wellness side, about how AI tools like ChatGPT can combat ADHD paralysis. And so we've got an article here we're going to link in from Mashable in the show notes here. But ADHD affects 4.4% of US adults. And in this article, the author describes how using a tool like ChatGPT helped with their, focusing their efforts being a dungeon master. So, it's quite interesting. What I found, like in this, I'm the sort of person like I don't have a diagnosis of any sort, but I know, and I think I get it from my dad, and we've got a little bit in our family of some of the, not the clinical ADHD necessarily. And I know we've talked about that amongst some of our team members here, but more, you don't have 10 browser tabs open, you have 500 browser tabs open. But I found personally that a tool like ChatGPT is great for, instead of just doing random like web searches trying to find answers to questions, is just asking ChatGPT for answers and then doing a little bit of fact checking. And then I'm finding it's keeping the tasks a lot more contained. And so I don't have to have dozens and dozens of browser tabs open for any particular topic. So that's one way that it's been helping me. Gray, have you been using ChatGPT for for research and stuff? Like always remembering about fact checking and the like. Have you found it helpful with these sorts of efforts?
For research, not so much, but taking content and then amalgamating it into a close to finished whole and then going and doing some refining has been most of what I've done with it. Looking at this and asking questions of it, I suppose, that has been part of the process of writing those first drafts. So, I mean, I know for myself, when I have paralysis, oddly enough, today I got my diagnosis. I have been diagnosed with ADHD. But, and so, irony. Looking at this, when I do have paralysis, it is because I have difficulty deciding which task to proceed with next, and it's
Right.
just You sit there and it's not the trolley problem, it's the trolley problem magnified.
Mhm.
And so I almost wonder, is there a point where I'm going to be able to turn to ChatGPT and say, knowing everything that I have going on in my life right now,
Yeah.
what would you prioritize? And that may be something where I might be able to help.
And it sounds kind of crazy, but I find anything that pops into my head, I just ask and see what kind of answer. And sometimes you get some interesting insights. So I encourage people who are whatever kind of problem you're struggling with. Whether sometimes, like people are finding, we've talked about this before, that people are finding that some of these chatbots are actually very effective as counseling tools, and some people are reporting better outcomes than dealing with human beings, as strange as that might sound. So there's a wide spectrum of uses for this. So any type of issue or problem, research, summarizing, making decisions, it can help you step through those things in a logical fashion, because one of the things, as we've discussed, this is really good at is languages and dealing with information. Will, have you I know, Will, you and I have had some fun with ChatGPT in the past as regards storytelling and the like. Have you had much of a chance to to play with it yourself?
Yeah, I used it a little bit for some projects, just amalgamating a bunch of content and getting it to spit some stuff out. Again, as Grace said, it's much like my experiences with other AI tools. People who think that you put in a prompt and then you print exactly what comes out are missing the point of this. It's for me, one of my problems always is getting started. And this is a great place to get started, to generate some ideas. Tristan, I mean, you and I used to actually employ some writers, and for a contract that we both worked on. And I feel like it's a bit like that. It's like a start. It's a first draft, and we can take it from there. And we used to heavily edit those articles that we got back from people. So not that we're taking away jobs, but it's again, I think it's just it's a way to get started, and you can pump in the information that you want to get out, and you might have to tweak it along the way. But I think it's a great tool. I've always had problems, putting pen to paper, in the sense of like, how should I start? And, there's that classic, like, writer's block type of thing. So I think this is one thing that really helps. I recently had to do some web content really quickly, and so I used this to help me along the way. But yeah, there are some funny things that also come out. I was watching a YouTube video talking about, it asked ChatGPT for some jokes, and one of them that came out was, why are Americans bad at chess? Because they lost 2 towers in one move.
Oh,
Wow.
Maybe
I love
not.
ChatGPT.
If this channel was monetized, it is now demonetized. Thank you.
it's been 22 years, but still a little too soon.
So I bring that up just because you do have to be careful about what it spits out. It might be too truthful or a bit too close to the bone. So maybe don't get it to write your jokes quite yet, because it doesn't really understand the subtlety of human emotions, perhaps.
And now I watch Lord of the Rings. Is that weird?
Well, good save. All right, we got to let Tasia go. So before we let you go, Tasia, I'll just touch on this story very briefly, because we've been talking for a couple of years here on Momentous Live about EVs, and those of us who have dipped our toes in the EV waters. Some of us who are thinking more about hybrids or plug-in hybrid EVs. And Tasia, I know that you've been looking, considering maybe a Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid or a pure EV when it comes. Well, we just over the last few weeks, we've had a series of announcements regarding the Tesla charging standard being adopted as the NACS, the North American charging standard, with Ford and GM getting on board, and most recently Rivian as a great ubiquitous alternative to those offered by, say, like Electrify America, which have had some problems with keeping things up and running. Tesla has a pretty elegant and slimline connector, and the the scuttlebutt is that this will really help drive the adoption of EVs, just because Tesla's invested billions in their charging infrastructure, and by opening it up in a robust and official manner to other automakers, it will help give EVs the boost that they need here. Tasia, before we let you go, how does this affect your decision-making process for considering either a plug-in hybrid EV or a full-on EV, especially when it comes to road trips and the accessibility of charging infrastructure?
I'm probably still, for my next one, going to do the hybrid, and then in 10 more years, I will do a fully electric. However, I will say for people that are probably looking to upgrade, not like in the next year or so, this is very exciting, because it's like, finally, we've been talking about this forever. Like, when you make things easily accessible for people and easier to make that switch. Weren't we talking about this with, was it like the hydrogen power cars, right? So like, eventually it's just going to be what it is, like how we're used to going to a gas station, but you have to make it easy for people. You have to make it accessible for people. You can't just have one like like I think of when we do a road trip to like see my sister-in-law in California, and it's like, I know exactly where we have to stop, and it's a tiny little town, and there's only like 4 chargers. And what do you do if they're all taken? Because they probably will be. Like, so it's just stuff like this. Like, the more options we have for people, the easier it is to get them into the product.
Exactly. I guess the flip side being that now a lot of places you see the Tesla supercharger stations, they have 45,000 supercharger connectors at just under 5,000 stations around North America. Now, a lot of times they're mostly empty. You might see a couple of Teslas in them, but now when they open them up to the other automakers, the demand for those will start to increase. So you'll see Fords and GMs and eventually Rivians, as those gain market share as well, sort of filling up some of those slots. So it will be interesting to see how the supply and demand for the chargers and charging keep in step with each other, so we don't end up with the kind of lineups we used to see in the 70s for gas during the oil crisis. All right, Tasia, we will let you go, and we hope to see you again next week. And
don't have too much fun without me.
Oh, we won't. We never have fun without you.
I'm passing the torch.
All right. Well, Tasia, we hope your week is truly momentous.
Momentous.
We'll do one of these. And that marks halftime here at Momentous Live.
Halftime.
We've seen Tasia Custodi has now left the building.
Orange slices for everyone.
Oh, suck. Ged, what's your take on this? So Ford is finally, I don't know, not throwing
cracking.
Not
how much time you got?
Yeah. Do you see? I mean, I guess it's one of these things. Like, if the only way for the Tesla saw for their to support the adoption of their own vehicles was to ensure that there was a robust charging network, and so they made the required investments. Meanwhile, you have a variety of other automakers who have slowly gotten into EVs. And as such, there's been a real patchwork of non-Tesla chargers out there, such as Electrify America. Here in Canada, we have Electrify Canada, very small footprint. In BC, here, we're lucky to have BC Hydro charging stations. Some of them only have like a single charger in them. So I was able to use one a few weeks ago, and I made a quick run across the border, and I have a low range electric vehicle myself, but 110 kilometers. So I charged once on the way down and once on the way back, just to ease that anxiety a little bit and have that extra speed for charging. And I browsed a grocery store and got an ice cream cone while I was at it. What's your take, being, having worked in the auto industry yourself and seeing what Tesla has done and seeing what the others have or haven't done?
I can oddly speak to this to an uncomfortable degree. So I don't know if you guys know, but I actually own a Model 3 long range. So our primary vehicle is a Model 3. Gray's actually driven it while he's been home. He's experienced the level 2 charger we have here at the house. But not only that, I can speak to it from the other side. So back in the winter, I know it's been many months since we've connected. Myself and my unofficial kid We actually flew to the very, very tip of the Great Lakes, and we drove a Ford Mach-E literally from a town to which I literally can't think of it right now. It's at the very, very tip of Lake Superior. We drove it down through the US for 2 days, all the way back to Cambridge. And we had no issues. Like, there were times we got into a couple stops at 11%, which is down to maybe 50 or 60 kilometers, the same way you would at a gas station. But there was never any danger. Like, the native apps on Ford and on these on these companies, the same as Tesla, they will map your route out. You know, the superchargers, yes, they charge for, you know, they'll charge in. I once went from 6 to 60% in London, Ontario in 13 minutes. Now, when I hear people say that it takes too long to charge the car and they don't have 13 minutes, I would like to know what they do for a living. Because if you don't have 15 minutes to walk in and get McDonald's or get a coffee, then you need to reprioritize what you are doing with your life. The biggest issues that we had was we would stop in the middle. I know I can't swear on the show, but we would stop in the middle of nowhere, and we'd plug into a spot, and they're not lined up. Everyone who says that these chargers are lined up 7, 10 at a time are the same idiots that go on Best Buy and give something a 1-star rating. No one ever goes on and says how wonderful things are. They only have a voice when they have something negative to say. The stops were awesome. Every 3 hours, we would drive 350 kilometers. It would stop us at a town. We would get out. We'd go have breakfast. We'd go have lunch, like you're supposed to. When people say, "Oh, are you worried about running out with range?" Plan. Be accountable. Be an adult. Like, this is what our parents had to do. Before the world of GPS and before the world of Waze, they had to plan what they were doing with their time. Like, it is
the CAA triptych.
Yeah.
We're going to stop for gas here. We're going to stop for the flip over map. Yeah.
Like, all this is bringing back a bit of now, is a bit of accountability. So going back to the Tesla thing, Tesla's charging system is obscenely slick. And when you buy your Tesla, you get an adapter. So if you're out somewhere else and you're not at a Tesla charger, you can plug into a normal charger. It'll adapt to your Tesla. You do have to pay the thing. There's 4 or 5 apps you can download. It's super straightforward. Now, the Tesla system is amazing. No card required. You plug in, you leave it for either 15 or 35 minutes or whatever it happens to be, and then you go on your way. I understand people's fear, but that fear is from lack of experience. And I have a 2018, like mine goes 470 maybe
kilometers.
Yeah.
That's a pretty decent range. So
I know that's a bit of a ramble. It's just weird because I've had that long range experience, like an uncomfortably Fort Francis. If you want to look up where Fort Francis, Ontario is, we are from Fort Francis to Cambridge, Ontario in 2 days. It was 2,000 kilometers or 1,700 kilometers. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things there. One, last year or maybe the year before, YouTuber Marquez Brownlee of MKBHD, he did a challenge with a few of his staff members, and they basically raced, quote unquote, raced a Tesla, and I believe it was a Ford Mach-E along a certain route using their native charging infrastructure. So the Tesla used the Tesla charging, or whatever they were able to, and similarly the Ford used whatever they could use at the time. And the Tesla made it there a lot more quickly.
Something like that. Yeah.
Say that again.
It's called the blue grid or the blue something. Yep.
Yeah. So they and the Tesla made it in quite a bit more time because just the availability of the Tesla superchargers, the maintenance thereof, a lot of the chargers that the other team was trying to use were a lot of times they're out of service or they were backed up or what have you. So when you mentioned adapters, so as a Tesla owner, you have an adapter to use the more general purpose chargers. So with the models from Ford, GM, and Rivian, probably starting next year, they will have the reverse adapter. So, and then you have to have an account set up with Tesla, and you will be able to use your adapter to use the Tesla charging stations. I have a friend who's actually been eyeing a Mach-E
already available.
there you go.
My unofficial kid has one for when he
Yeah.
comes to the house. If he wants to charge up, he's welcome to. It's $180 on
Right.
Amazon.
But I think they'll start like including them with the new model sales. And I have a friend who's actually waiting for the next year model of the Mach-E for that very reason. And I guess they
so
probably will have
cool.
worked out more of the kinks and whatnot with the accounts and all that, that stuff. Because you're going to have to pay for it, of course.
Yeah. And I realize this is very like sacrilegious, but from an actual driving perspective, I'm embarrassed to tell you, the Ford is actually a better driving vehicle.
Not sacrilegious at all, right? Like let the market
Model
decide,
3
right?
flies and
Yeah.
it's cool, but Ford is a car company.
Mhm.
They did a better job with the car portion of it.
Right.
It just doesn't make you want to wet yourself with Teslas.
Well, while we're on it, what do you think of Ford's decision to use the Mustang branding
Pass.
for the Mach-E?
Next question.
Because there were some Mustang diehard
Pass.
purists who were like, "What are they doing?" But I
Shouldn't
kind of get it
No.
because,
No.
like,
No. It was a bad call.
but if you think about it, like from a branding perspective, like getting people in the door, it's like, well, this is a quote unquote Mustang. But if they just launched the Ford Mach-E, they might have attracted the nerds. But when you call it a Mustang Mach-E, some of the Mustang people may be like, well, I'm not a Mustang purist, but I like Mustangs. Maybe I'll be interested in it. Like I've got a buddy who's loved
Corvette's doing the
Mustangs for
same
decades.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Corvette's doing the same thing. They're
Right.
all gonna. You're probably gonna see a Camaro SUV electric in the next 3 years. Like,
The fact they didn't call it the electric Stang, that's another
Right.
no-no.
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think are we in agreement here that this seems to be a good thing, despite the fact that the CCS coalition seems to be a little upset about this. It's just I think the market is kind of just like Tesla. Tesla had the best technical solution. It sounds like the most elegant.
It's slick.
Charger, and with their charging stations, they can do it like 250 kilowatts up to 1,000 volts at some point. So that's when you're concerned about the speed. Now you don't want to be charging super fast like that all the time because that's going to murder your battery life.
Correct. So yeah, your car will actually condition itself to literally prep itself for that kind of charge. You shouldn't do it all the time.
We can file this one with HDD.
That's right. Yeah.
Throw it in the pile. CSS. CCS.
Now, Gray, I know that you've been eyeing the Rivian for a while. Now, the fact that Rivian is looking at adopting the Tesla NACS, North American Charging Standard, does this, when finances allow, does this inch you even a little bit more closer to the Rivian camp?
Oh, yes. By about one adapter length.
Perfect. Okay.
That's about 8 inches, right?
5.
Oh, okay.
And Will, for your last take, we know how big a fan you are of certain Mr. Musk. Will, does this move make you more or less in favor of a car that would use the Tesla superchargers? If you had an EV that could use Tesla superchargers, would you deliberately avoid them?
No, I mean, I don't hate the products that Elon makes. I just hate him as a human.
What did he ever do to you?
Well, kill Twitter.
So other people, yeah. I think, I mean, I was resistant to Teslas. I actually was on a vacation recently, and we got an Uber, and I purposely picked one, or we picked one that was a Tesla, and it was really cool, and it was a fun ride. And even though we were in the back and watching the monitors we were going, and seeing the cameras all around, and it's a cool piece of technology. But I mean, besides that, I think that it just makes sense. You don't have different adapters for gasoline intake, right? You don't have one that's a square and one that's a circle, so like as Tasia was saying, that just to get it universal adapters, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. So despite what I think of Elon as a human, I think they're the cars that I've seen and been in, I've enjoyed. So
all right, well, looking forward to seeing you in your Cybertruck sometime soon when they come out in 20 years.
And that is a thing. Sorry, before we get off this, I have had countless people ask me, like, because I own a Tesla, oh, do you like Elon Musk? It has nothing to do with it. Like,
do you like Henry Ford?
Seriously, like,
Do you like
It's a good piece of technology. Do I think he's a
Yeah.
wackadoodle? Absolutely. But his car, I can drive 2,200 kilometers for $35. So unless he's knocking off
Mhm.
entire civilizations, cool. Like unless he's building a sub out of Lego and taking people down there, I'm on board.
I miss the Iacocca. I miss the Iacocca. That's who I miss.
All right,
There's a
let's
Christ
move
like movie
on
joke.
to a little bit of gaming news now that Deja's gone. So Gray is one of the early adopters of the little yellow different handheld gaming console featuring a crank known as the Playdate. And one of the neat things about the Playdate is their regular drops of games, and a new game drop has just arrived. It's called Catalog Drop number 6. Gray, could you walk us through the highlights of this, and if you had experience with any of these so far?
So I haven't tried these out yet because my Playdate is currently at home, and I'll be charging it up and giving it a go. I haven't played that much with it. I love it. It's charming. I don't know. Life really just hasn't afforded the opportunities, and afford is actually kind of the word here because a lot of these new apps are actually
Oh.
paid. So they still have their season model. I think that they're rolling out a season 2 at some point. But these apps here, Stars with the Screen is $6, and it's this delightful recreation of screensavers from like the Windows 3.1 era. P Racing is a 3D racer that works with the crank. This though, like, look at these screenshots. Look at these little videos. There's no reason to have this, and I'm going to pay them $6 for it when I get home. And it's just ridiculous. Pocket Planner has a calculator, has a voice memo app. They're really pushing the capabilities of this little device. So I'm very impressed. They did have to scale back the processor that they were using. They planned on scaling back the processor that they were going to use because they couldn't get this chip, but they did find another chip of equal performance. So it looks like we're not going to have a 2-tier Playdate experience, which came out wrong. But still, anyway, this looks tons of fun. I've been working on a Momentous-based text game for a while, which won't come out till 2024, but you'll be able to look for it on the Playdate App Store.
Wow. Well, we'll look forward to that one. It's interesting.
Do you guys know how ridiculous that whole thing sounds? My Playdate's at home charging up. Like, do you hear yourselves? You literally sound like people in Japan who are buying girlfriends. Like, if you go back and watch this segment, the last 3 minutes could literally be used as an inflatable girlfriend.
Well, you got to crank it.
Yeah.
It's got a crank. You got to charge up your Playdate. It's having a bit of a processor issue where I don't really want a 2-tiered Playdate experience. Like, somewhere the guy who invented this is like, you idiots, you haven't caught on to this yet.
The company is panicked.
Ged, I hate to say it, but maybe it tells us more about you than the Playdate.
That's fair. Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
In other gaming news, and speaking of developing your own games, there is a tool known as GB Studio, which is a quick and easy to use drag and drop retro game creator for your favorite handheld video game system, such as, say, the Game Boy. And these games could run in emulators, or if you had the right hardware, you could, do the ROMs and burn them to EPROMs and make your own little cartridges and the like. So Gray had mentioned making games for the Playdate, but if you wanted to make games for some of the other popular well-known handheld systems out there, there's a way to do this here that is looks like a low-code, no-code sort of environment for those looking to develop games for fun as a little bit of a hobby. Always wanted to, but didn't know how to code. Now's your chance. What do you think, Will? Is it you're finally going to make your Game Boy game you've had in the back of your mind for all these years?
Well, I used to make some games for fun on in Flash back in the days when that was actually relevant.
All right.
It's time for a port.
Exactly.
Games, let's port them.
Port them over.
Amen.
And you can even play them on things like the Analog Pocket, which we've talked about a few times here on Momentous Live, that it can be used to play Game Boy games and others. But speaking of Game Boy, Will has a bit of Super Mario Brothers news for us. What is Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Will?
Yeah, so this is very trippy. We were discussing it at work, and it's sort of like Mario on acid or mushrooms or something. My wife was a little bit upset by the fact the flowers talk. But yeah, I mean, this just looks really awesome to me. I just love the retro 2D Mario. I mean, I like 3D Mario as well, but there just feels something very classic and fresh and new about it. And uh, both my wife and I are really excited about this coming out. It's October 20th, I believe, and of this year. And so coming to the Switch. And yeah, we love a good 2D Mario. It's my favorite type of Mario games are these 2D ones. So really looking forward to it. You should move a bit forward to maybe a little bit back to where it gets really trippy. I don't know. There's some parts where it's.
I mean,
really
Mario is on mushrooms usually.
Yes, this is extra special mushrooms. So yeah, it gets very bizarre at some point.
Wow.
But yeah, and you know, it looks like there was some 2D Marios that were done that just look like rinse and repeat, but this looks like they've done a lot of new stuff. Looks like some new game concepts, breaking some of the traditional models, but still 2D, still looks very fun. Multiplayer, you got Peach and I think Daisy is in this trailer, and Toadstool, and yeah, looks like fun. I'm all in on this.
Well, we'll have to.
Mario's kind of got a bit of a Dumbo vibe.
Yeah. Well, at the end.
Well,
spoiler alert.
We look forward to your full review come October 21st.
Yes.
Moving from Super Mario to Superman, DC's James Gunn has revealed the cast for the upcoming Superman movie, Superman Legacy, with David Corenswet playing the titular character and Rachel Brosnahan to play Lois Lane. I believe she starred in the fabulous Mrs. Maisel, and he is known for his breakout role in Netflix's The Politician. Ged, as our official momentous entertainment correspondent, what are your thoughts on this choice to replace Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel and his love interest?
I humbly admit that I was not aware that this was announced. This is the first time seeing it.
Is his jaw square enough for you?
I mean, I know that they're going back to an origin type movie. I struggle with this one because I'm very pro Henry Cavill. So I grew up as a Superman nerd. So I'm always going to watch it. I love the show Superman and Lois. Like I will take all of the Superman. But it's going to be hard because Henry Cavill was just such a slam dunk in my mind. Even having watched the new DC movie very recently, which I don't know if we're going to talk about it all, but it's weird seeing somebody other than Henry Cavill. And that's hard after everyone said the same thing about Christopher Reeve for years, right?
And, Brandon Routh.
Nope.
He's the Atom, right? Yeah, he's the Atom.
Yeah.
So I think what the approach that James Gunn has gone on the record saying here is that, and as much as he respected, Henry Cavill and his handling of the character, is they're going for a bit more human, a bit more relatable Superman. Henry Cavill he was so jacked. And the way the storyline went with Man of Steel and Justice League and Batman versus Superman, all that, it seemed he became more and more distant as a character. And James Gunn is trying to bring Superman back down to earth, so to speak, and sort of reground things. And we've got an actor who's 10 years younger than Henry Cavill. He's actually what the age of Henry Cavill was when he took on the role of Superman. So it's sort of like resetting, and a bit of a shame given the extra sort of the after credits scene from Black Adam. There was a lot of hope that we might see Henry Cavill, but it was not to be given the shakeup at DC.
So
Gray,
James Gunn's basically the Johnny Depp of the DC world. They get too old, and he just replaces them. Someone 10 years younger.
Oh,
Wow!
or Leonardo
we have some
DiCaprio.
edgy jokes today.
Did they like that?
Yeah.
Gray, what's your take on these new picks for Clark and Lois?
I mean, we've had a cavalcade of Supermen in the last little while.
I see what you did
Personally, like Tyler Hoechlin is right there. Bitsy Tulloch is right there, and this guy's gonna be great, I'm sure. But it's just, I'm a little super saturated, you know,
so to speak.
It's a little more super salad at this point. Like, can we? I don't know. I'll watch it. I'll watch it, but it's just like, what's the compelling story that we're being told with Superman Legacy with a younger, like if you were telling like a Kingdom Come story, you know, where Superman's in his older years and you're giving a title like Legacy, I guess he's talking about his Kryptonian heritage, but we had 12 seasons of that with Smallville. I don't know. I don't know.
Give me a Green Lantern movie. We haven't had one of those yet.
Yeah, but I think if recent media history has taught us anything, is that you can take a beloved actor from the TV world and you can move him in. I mean, the whole world wants Daredevil, you know, as the Matt Murdock is in there to be part of that MCU. I mean, you could have taken the actor, I apologize, I don't know his name, from Superman and Lois.
Tyler Hoechlin.
You could bring him right into this brilliantly. I mean, that show punches way above its weight class. I mean, it's produced beautifully. It's casted really well. I mean, that would have been a no-brainer. My concern is that they're trying to reinvent the wheel when it wasn't needed.
Dean Cain's available.
No, he's not. Dean's got things to do. And he's not. We're not calling Dean. We're not calling Dean.
Moving from DC to Marvel. Will, it's a dream come true. Get in line for Marvel Studios' Rogers the Musical, as teased in the series Hawkeye, coming soon to a Disneyland park near you. Will, how excited are you for Rogers the Musical hitting the real world?
Well, I'm not going to go, obviously. It's a very limited engagement. I mean, I think it's a fun idea. It's extremely limited, and actually they're only doing it till August, which as a bit of a Disney nerd, seems like a bit of a weird choice. It's almost like a placeholder till they bring back the Aladdin show at that theater. So it is strange. I think it makes sense if they're only going to do it for a little while. The demand is so high, they're actually doing a virtual queue right now, which means you have to log on the day that you go into the park and book your spot at the Hyperion. So, and it is just basically, it looks like it's only about a 2-act thing. So they have one that we're seeing there, which is kind of the origin of Steve. Again, we haven't seen it yet, so we don't know for sure, but just from the concept photos, and apparently there's going to be like some of the songs from the first Avenger, you know, the War Bond song or something like that. And then we'll go in, we can do, and then go into the Do This All Day. So
yeah, I was gonna say 2 acts. I thought he could do this all day. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I hope there's more to it than that, but apparently this is a fairly short show and it's a limited engagement. But it's you know, one of the things that they're good at doing is listening to fans for the most part, and you know, doing fun stuff like this and expanding the universe and having inside jokes. So I think it's fun. Is it something that I think should be in the Disney parks for the next 10 years? Probably not. But there's also some feelings maybe this is either a trial run, or this is something they might bring to the Disney Cruise Line, which likes short, vacuous entertainment. So this could be another thing that they're maybe just trial running here, because it seems like a lot of effort for 2 months. It's basically at the end of this month until August. So that seems like a fair bit of money. They did a casting call and everything for 2 months. It seems like a bit bizarre, but we'll see.
They did film Hamilton, and this would be right. I can't finish that. I tried.
It's okay.
Right
But
beside
do
it
you-
on Disney Plus. I mean, just neck and neck. Lin-Manuel Miranda, Rogers the Musical. Boom, done.
To your point, Gray, and all kidding aside, I definitely, this is a no-brainer to put on Disney Plus, right? Like,
Yeah.
give it the treatment. Will, do you think they're going to repurpose the soon-to-be retired Star Wars hotel into Stark Tower, maybe?
Well,
Perhaps?
very interesting. So that building was very purposely built to be the Star Wars hotel. It's not easily adapted. There's no windows. They actually have TV screens instead of windows, monitors to show space. And the other thing is, apparently they wrote it off. So they can't use any of the technologies or any of the things that they built for the Star Wars hotel or repurpose it because it's a tax write-off. They can't make any
Leased out
money
to the
off of
Department
it
of
going
Corrections.
forward. Sorry?
It could be leased out to the Department of Corrections. It is Florida.
Yeah. Well, that would make DeSantos happy. He's one of the person on Disney
I was
properties.
going to say there's a
Figured you have
big
a spot.
there's a big correction required for that a little Star Wars albatross there. Now, well, before we move on to our momentous picks, Ged, I'm going to throw a curveball at you since we haven't had you on for a while, and since you are Ged Smythe of Fabulous Flicks. What movies are you most looking forward to this summer blockbuster season?
I mean, obviously, Flashpoint that just came out was obviously a massive, massive one.
Have you seen it yet?
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
The stuff I've been looking forward to more actually is the stuff that's coming to disc. There are some things that have just come out. There's a lot of smaller houses bringing out some stuff from back in the day that I have emotionally been waiting for many years. So much to my lovely wife's chagrin, because I still buy physical media, I go into Cinema One or I call Cinema One at Stone Road Mall and I still like reserve overpriced 4K movies. So I mean, there's always going to be great stuff coming to theater. I mean, there's a great lineup coming. I don't have it in front of me right now. But it's the stuff that's coming to disc. It's the stuff that's just being launched. The 2003 Italian Jobs, the movie Belly, Snatch was released a while ago. My pick I'm going to talk about and its predecessor, and the things that spin off from that are the things that I'm kind of most excited about.
So no Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning?
Oh, I'm pumped for Mission Impossible.
Okay.
Gray and I may have watched a Mission Impossible movie last night. The other ones I haven't seen yet are Spider-Verse, which I'm dying to see. Oppenheimer looks absolutely phenomenal. I don't think it is functionally possible to have cast him any better. When I saw the first sequel and it was Scarecrow from Batman, like the first Batman movie, and the guy from Peaky Blinders, I mean, you can't beat it. Those are definitely the big ones. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one I want to watch because Seth Rogen. I mean, it's going to be a blast. I don't know if I'll see that stupid Junebug Blue Beetle movie. I don't think I can do it. I'm a Marvel guy through and through, as you know, but I don't think I can get down with that. And I'll see Indiana Jones only as a tribute. I think that's like 140. Like, just let it go, man. Like, he should. The only dial he needs to touch is the pharmaceutical dial, and when it's time to take his afternoon pills.
Wow. All right, so let's roll right into our picks of the week. Will, you chose the thing that I was going to choose, but that's okay. You can have it because we saw this together, and I
feel bad for picking it because I had
feel
something
bad. It was
else,
so good. It's so good.
So Tristan and I went and saw Blackberry. So it's a documentary. No, it's a loose telling of the story, the origin of Research in Motion and the creation of the BlackBerry mobile devices. It was really good. And I have to say, there's a couple actors that you're very aware that they are acting. But the one that was absolutely amazing was the Jim Basile, played by Glenn Howerton. I mean, he is that guy, right? Like, that's the real guy. Like, it was creepy. Like,
Glenn
was
Howerton with that granddaddy
convincing.
haircut was amazing. I mean, it's a little
Yeah.
I found some of his hair a little distracting, but he really owned that character. It was. I think Gray, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll appreciate in the later years the introduction of the BlackBerry Storm.
He used to work there.
Yes, I was worked on the Verizon business unit in 2011 when the big blow up happened. I was in New Orleans when we got the call, and our whole team pretty much got wiped out the next day.
Yikes!
I'm pumped actually to watch it. Oh, it was on great terms. Like,
you guys should watch it tonight.
Is what it is.
Probably on demand somewhere already.
We can make that happen.
So I hardly endorse that pick for
Nice.
sure. It was. It had me grinning the whole time like an idiot. And again, it felt like it was in line with, even though it's set a little bit later, some other couple of great movies we've had in the last couple of months, including Tetris and about the development or about the licensing of the Game Boy rights. How obscure is that for the game Tetris, and Air, about the securing of Michael Jordan endorsement deal for Nike. Enjoyed. So this is, for me, kind of rounds out a trifecta of these 80s, 90s period movies quite nicely.
Do you know the other one that it reminded me of, because it was kind of a loose telling, obviously quite a bit different, was Steve Jobs, the movie Steve Jobs.
I thought you were going to go Weird Al Yankovic there.
Oh, no, not Weird Al Yankovic,
yeah.
But the one with Michael Fassbender, where it wasn't so much an accurate retelling as it was like an impression. It was giving you like an overview or a summary or synopsis, and giving some, I guess, artistic critiques on things as well.
Gray's pick of the week, speaking of Mission Impossible, it's Mission Impossible Fallout. Now, Gray, what number in the...
This is number 6, I believe.
Number 6. All right.
Yeah.
And is this what you and Ged watched recently?
It was indeed. So I'd seen up to 5, which was Rogue Nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which the villain in this is the villain from Rogue Nation, I believe. Yeah, and there's obviously, like, the story is carried on so well through all of these movies. I just like thinking back to Mission Impossible 1, right? John Voight, Asta Lasagna, Don't Get Any Emilio Estevez. Ving Rhames has been through all of them. We've seen Simon Pegg get picked up here. Philip Seymour Hoffman as the villain in 3 was phenomenal, right? John Woo doing his best takeoff of his own movie Face Off in 2 was also delightful.
Oh boy.
And just so, like, going through this whole thing, and I realized, like, for like over a year, I have not gone through and watched. Well, I wasn't quite sure where I'd stopped off, but I remember seeing Rogue Nation. I hadn't seen Fallout, and, like, speaking of Henry Cavill,
yep,
right? Like,
with a mustache,
waiting for the reload scene with the it was just like, when it happened, I was like, yes, there it is. There's the meme. Absolutely loved the villains in this. Henry Cavill proportion, just his performance had me absolutely hooked at the end. And just really can't say much more than that. So really, truly enjoyed it.
Where were you able to watch it on in Canada on streaming nowadays?
Oh, I think you own that, don't
you? I own it. Yeah,
Oh,
I own it on Apple.
Yeah.
I don't have it on physical media. I'm waiting for them all to come out before I buy. Like, once Dead Reckoning 1 and 2 come out, then I'll buy them all in 4K.
Because Dead Reckoning 2, we have a rumor it's going to take place in the International Space Station.
Yeah, it's apparently going to be filmed. A portion of it's going to be filmed in space.
Perfect. Speaking of physical media, Ged, your pick of the week is exactly that, for a movie that came out. It only took how long? 14 years to come out as a sequel?
Way too long. And what I loved about this release is they released Avatar 1, Avatar 2, and they're in the works, if they haven't already, releasing Titanic. So James Cameron went on just a full plunder recently. And I was super curious about this piece of physical media, especially from a coloring standpoint, because it has the ability, obviously, to be oversaturated. The HDR in this movie could have been grossly overdone. The surround effects could have been distracting because it was such a pure source, because it involved so much of nature, obviously making its way from the forest to the water. But I gotta say, James Cameron did an incredible job with this. It's very vocally focused. Atmos kicks in, but only when it's needed. It's not distracting. There's been a good run of 4K media lately in its release, starting back from the movie The Batman, where they've really started to figure out how to properly Atmos out movies. Like, I have Rogue Nation, for example, in Atmos from a few years ago, and I love the movie, but it is, I hate to say it, it's an atrocity of an audio mix. There's just so much happening all the time around you. It's impossible to focus on the movie itself. But they're really coming into their own, and they did an incredible job toning down the HDR, so it was cinematically a work of art. They work with the IMAX aspect ratio. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
So that's Avatar: The Way of Water 4K Blu-ray.
Yeah.
What's your preferred source for 4K Blu-rays nowadays?
Like, in terms of where I buy them?
Yeah.
I used to buy them on Amazon. I've stopped. I think I actually bought a fake version of A Star Is Born. I can't verify it, but I'm pretty sure it's not authentic, which is really frustrating because it's a beautiful movie. So I go to Cinema One. There's a few of them around Canada, but 80% of the people that work there are nerds just like us. Like, I can have a conversation with these guys, and yeah, it cost me more money. I ordered Belly. It was $40 on 4K, and it was a movie from like 1999. But I'm happy to pay the money. I'm happy to support it.
I'll have to check that one out.
And on the 4K thing, I haven't purchased a single new Marvel movie because they're releasing them all on Disney and IMAX Enhanced, and they have not done it in 4K physical media yet, which is an entire other conversation. But
got to load up on your 4K media in time for the EMP.
That's it. Oh God, that's right. Whatever, I'm ready. We got enough Harry Potter and James Bond to last me a lifetime.
So yeah, Avatar: Way of Water. It was fun. I met Gray, and Will and I saw that together in the theater back earlier this year. So glad the 4K Blu-ray holds up its end of the bargain there. My momentous pick this week is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, and it's a 2009 movie. I watched over at my dad's place. I was with him for the Father's Day weekend, as I've been doing the last number of years, an excuse to take the motorbike to the Gulf Islands. And we watched this movie, A Serious Man, which I've been wanting to see for a while. And it was the Coen brothers, Ethan and Joel Coen. And it's the story of Larry Gopnik, a Midwestern physics teacher, as he watches his life unravel over multiple sudden incidents. Though seeking meaning and answers amidst his turmoils, he seems to keep sinking. So yeah, it's 1967, Minnesota, I believe. A Jewish fellow is a university professor, and just his life is falling apart just piece by piece. His wife is leaving him for another gentleman, and they have a meeting. The three of them have a meeting together, and the wife and the new suitor have decided it would probably be best if Larry moved out, for the sake of the children. Things like that. It's almost Kafkaesque in a way. In the meantime, he has one of his university students, a foreign student, who was displeased with his failing grade on a midterm and just wants him to give him a passing grade. Just because, and then somehow an envelope full of cash appears on his desk, but no, he's not being bribed. And one thing after another just it happens, and it's very low key. It's very Coen Brothers, but definitely worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of the Coen Brothers.
Yeah, that looks very cool. Actually, I like that.
On to our projects this week. Will does not have any beats for us this week, but to make up for it, Ged's got something pretty cool going on. That actually, before we get to Ged's big project, we'll start with Gray, because Gray, you've got a little kind of an update to a project for us, and you were redeveloping the website for Cambridge Engravers, and you have a bit of news about that.
Yeah, so we're now e-commerce enabled, which is great. And we've actually had a great bit of success over the last little while. The website has the update went flawless, and so went through and just wanted to check in on things like Google redirects. Squarespace has been just so easy to use, and it's been yeah, really happy to get that online. My parents seem very happy, and yeah.
And you had mentioned because of the efficiency of using a tool like Squarespace, something about the ROI of the redevelopment.
We made the cost back in development in the first 3 days, so
There you go.
yeah, so it's off to a great start. We've had like basically streamlining the funnel process of folks getting, from initially discovering the brand to actually either placing an order or communicating, has been incredible. And my dad's really taken to it. Like he's happy. Paul, who's the fellow that works with him, very happy. So yeah, I'm glad I had the opportunity to do this. It's something that I've been working on the back end SEO SEM for a little while, 2 years, and that was doing well. But Apple Business Connect, Google Maps, these things, just making sure that we've got that consistency across the board. And now the website actually matches what you find when you search for it on Google Maps or Apple Maps. You actually end up at a website that I think we can all be proud of. The other website was 21 years old. 19 years old.
Wow.
19.
Good stuff. Well, we hope it continues to bring in a healthy amount of business for the family business. Now, moving on to Ged's project. So you've got a little something called Double Cross, and that has featured a number of different products. Can you give us a quick history of Double Cross and then tell us what Double Cross is up to nowadays?
Sure. So Double Cross was a brand that started drunk in my hot tub about 4 years ago. And we started doing kind of funny t-shirts, hoodies. In fact, I'm literally wearing one of our old hoodies by Dead Fluke. And then when the pandemic hit, we decided to have some fun and try having golf shirts made. So I contacted someone overseas in Vietnam whose name was Nam. Can't make that up. Wired $5,000 overseas and hope he didn't steal it. He didn't. Sent me a bunch of shirts. We sold them. It was a blast. I'd never do it again. But very quietly, we've been working, myself and a small group of people around me, around what the idea would be like of bringing a full golf simulator to the south end of Guelph. Now, Guelph is very underserviced. Golf simulators are becoming huge. If you Google TGL Golf League, Tiger Woods is literally launching an indoor simulator league starting next year. He's got 13 of the 15 top players in the world. It's becoming this crazy thing, not only because it allows people to play golf, but it really allows people to connect with each other. It allows you to bring in and uplift local business around. And by some absolute dead fluke, the one main simulator in Guelph actually closed. But they closed because of landlord issues, because they were renting. So at that time, we were literally in the midst of looking at if we wanted to rent or spend an obnoxious amount of money on some commercial space. So we've actually purchased 4,500 square feet of commercial space right in the south end of Guelph. This is the landing page you see. Gray's literally here. It's not published, but I built the main page of it today, and we'll be working on the pages over the next few days. And yeah, so coming this winter, Double Cross Sim Lounge will be an elevated, upscale, very hyper local focused golf simulator. And the nerdy part of this, and what I really want to talk about, is after demoing every single piece of technology out there, we are very happy to say that we are going to run what's called Foresight Hawk simulators. So if anybody watching this watches golf, you'll notice on about 70% of all the stalls on the PGA Tour, there's this little gray box. That's actually called a GC Quad. It's made by Foresight. It is accurate to within 1% of actual yardages. So Foresight has made this unit that goes up on the ceiling, and they are about to launch or have launched their new software called FX Play, which is beautiful 4K 3D graphics, 60 hertz. incorporates a lot more gamification for kids and bringing in new players. There's a website, you can create an account, you can log all your stats, it'll track all of your rounds. And even is going to start incorporating multi-sport. So working with like soccer right now is now a thing, or football, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And this is going to be our technology partner. And the closest place you can find that has this is about an hour and a half away in Collingwood. So it is a massive project.
That sounds exciting. Is yours going to be dedicated solely to golf?
Yes and no. I mean, we're going to have 4 bays on the main floor, and on the upper mezzanine, it's going to be a big 20 by 40 VIP lounge. That VIP lounge will will feature a half wall. So it'll be like a big 250, 300 inch projection, but they've also all been double HDMI'd. So if somebody wants to have a gaming party in there, if somebody wants to set up Golden Tee and have a Golden Tee party in there, or if a different sport wants to come in as this gamification happens and you can incorporate other sports, then for sure. I mean, yes, golf is my passion. Yes, I'm obviously super biased, but this is becoming about a lot more than that. This is a place where people can connect, they can socialize, they can do something while having a pint, while having a drink. I mean, unless you sit down and eat, there's really nowhere for adults to really connect unless you go to a bowling alley. There is the like the axe throwing has been a thing for a while, but and it's at the time where by dead fluke it's just about to explode, and I feel very humbled and fortunate that A, it's come to fruition, and B, my wife did not throw me out when I said I wanted to spend an undisclosed amount of money on a building and setting this up.
Quick question.
Yeah.
It sounds like an awesome project. For someone who's not totally into golf, what does double cross mean?
That's a good question. So double cross as a golf term is the second worst feeling in golf. So if you play golf, most people when they play golf, if you're a righty, the ball has this big swoopy right to left. They aim it and it goes 50, 100 yards right. Well, the odd time you get what's called the double cross, where you aim it left and it doesn't go right. It literally just slings dead left and goes way out of play. That is what's called a double cross, and it is the bane of my existence in tournament golf.
Who would you say is the target market for a destination like this?
Well, traditionally, it's been males aged 25 to about 70. But that's changing a lot. And the reason why it traditionally has been is because the setup of these places have been, in old retro bars or old kind of less than ideal kind of industrial spaces. No one in our area has really put one together that has that welcoming environment. Our goal is to obviously, of course, cater to that normal demographic, but also really look at the better player, the female, and the person just wanting to get into it or just wanting to connect with people. I mean, after the last few years, reconnecting with the people that you care about has never been more important. However, it's really hard to do that unless you're a child. There's really nowhere for adults to go. So our hope is that with the right layout, with the right people there, with the right technology, that we can create an environment where people that have said, like Will, for example, like, hey, I've never really done it. It's nerdy. I'm a nerd. I'm intrigued. I want to go there, but I want to go there and not feel like I'm going to be stared at in a judging manner. One of our closest advisors on this, because I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the smartest guy in this room. One of our small business advisors said, she said, this needs to be part of my life, but I don't go to the golf course because I feel judged and I feel like people are waiting for me and I don't want to hold them up. And I haven't gone to simulators in the past because they look like bars where people tried to make out with me 25 years ago. She didn't say make out because she's got a bit of a potty mouth like I do. She's like, but no one's really created a space that's welcoming yet, that allows me to want to go there. So it's been interesting getting a lot of that feedback. Sorry, that was way too long of an
No,
answer for your
that's
quick question.
No,
I'm having flashbacks because I think like several years ago on the show that Gray and Will and Tasia and I worked on together called Get Connected, I think we did a thing on golf simulators in Vancouver way back when, maybe like a primitive compared to today's standards. And I think
there still are ones
yeah,
downtown.
and friend of the show, Andy Barrar, actually I think hosted the segment we did there. Will, what did you have to add there?
Oh, I was just going to say, just to sort of piggyback on what Ged said, is that as you guys know, I'm very active in the soccer community and have been very involved in soccer groups. And one of the things that I found the most as someone who helped organize soccer groups is people would come and say, "Hey, I'm not that big into soccer, but I'm looking for a community." They might not say that like that, but that would be basically what they would say. And it's like, of course you're welcome. You don't have to be knowledgeable about soccer. Do you want to come and stand with us and chat and talk about Indiana Jones or about taxes or something? I mean, like, I mean,
finally taxes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like sports is the vehicle. But I always said like, hey guys, if it was about sports, I can watch it at home, and I can buy cheaper drinks and cheaper food. The reason why I'm coming to the bar or going to the stadium is that, you know, part of it is sharing it with other people and to have that community. And so, you know, I applaud you for seeing it that way. And I think, you know, it will really be a success if you're able to build that. And I know that you already have that vision in mind. So it just sounds really awesome. And I'd love to see it, even though I don't know anything about golf. I know who Tiger Woods is, but other than that,
I appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes traditionally that have been associated with golf simulators, and you touched on it. Like even those people new to soccer, the gamification around golf and around soccer makes it so that you, who's been involved with soccer for years, someone could literally show up, hang out, have a drink, play games that literally turn these massive 16 or 19-foot screens into an interactive game. And you don't have to be the fastest person out there. You don't have to have the most athletic ability. You can have a drink. Well, no, don't have a drink in your hand. I don't want it to simulate yourself, but you can be in there and you can have fun, and no one feels that judgment. No one feels that guilt. Like I played soccer for years. I'm a thick dude. You get to a point, you're like, I just shouldn't do this. But the hope is to take these sports that can have incredible community and bring them to an area where people can be introduced to them without the concern of some of that athletic stuff. So I really appreciate the kind words. I'll be honest, I am petrified at the scale of this project, but the feedback has been so good. And whether it's, you know, Gray obviously being here to support, and the people that have kind of quietly surrounded themselves with me to not only be supportive, but also keep me accountable and keep me humble and keep me on track.
Well, we look forward to further updates as it comes closer to fruition. In the meantime, people can
just all fly out there. You guys should all fly out, and then we'll just do a big shoot in the VIP lounge.
That sounds amazing.
Sounds good.
Right? So people can go to your website at dblcrs.ca and sign up to get on the mailing list for updates on your project as it evolves. And your target opening date of when?
We are looking to open sometime in November with a grand open of December 1st. It's literally in the process of being built right now. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. One last little project mention is Tasia, who was with us for the first half of this evening's show, has yet another YouTube video for us. This one back to her usual Google fare. This one on Google Analytics 4 setup. How to migrate Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4. This is something that Google's been giving us warning about for a better part of 18 months or so. And I have to go and update the analytics on my websites because GA4 is a bit more complicated than Universal Analytics. And anyway, so I'm going to go and watch her video, and so should you, at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi and TasiaCustodi.com. And you can find more about us at momentus.tv/links, our individual team members at momentus.tv/team, and of course the audio podcasts at momentous.tv/podcast. Ged, thank you so much for joining us. It's been far too long. We look forward to seeing you again sometime soon to talk about Double Cross and more, maybe more cars, maybe more
I
movies
love
and
it.
TV shows,
I
physical
I
media.
really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, guys.
And Will and Gray, as always, and everyone out there who's watching or listening, we hope your week is truly momentous.